Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
So our next the video that we're going to do is about what to do when a loved one passes. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of a tough couple weeks here because my mom passed away. So we're going to share all these things. We have a list of things that Hospice gave us. So we're going to share this with you because we've been doing all these things for the last 2 weeks. And they were actually really important.
They are.
So
and they're easy to do. Look, this is a really hard time for people.
Yep.
And this list is really things that are easy for you to do, and they will save you a lot of headaches down the road, and you already have enough on your plate to deal with without having more problems.
So if you're watching this video because a loved one passed, our condolences. We're going to go through the list because these are important things. You probably want to watch the video a couple times or write it down to make sure you do all these things. Okay, we'll probably put a lot of this in the comments too, so you'll be able to have it in there. Okay, the first one is the notifying the post office.
Right. This is super easy to do. I did it for Todd's mom. I just let the post office know online, and what I did is I forwarded the mail from her house to our house, so that we wouldn't miss any bills, we wouldn't miss anything that was important. And with that, I also signed up for the email confirmation to receive
informed consent.
Thank you. Informed delivery, I think.
Informed delivery.
Yes, and it's informed delivery. And so not only that, but every morning I get an email now saying, okay, look, these are the email pieces that are coming to you from Todd's mom's house, which is really nice. So we've been able to pay the bills and take care of things like that. Yeah,
this is a really important one if your loved one lived alone, because you want to make sure that important mail gets forwarded. Really important. The next one is duplicate death certificates.
Right, this is really important because you're going to need at least 6 of them for different things, depending on how many things your loved one had. And you can actually get the funeral home to help you with that. They will order as many death certificates as you'd like at the time that you're making the funeral arrangements. And that's such a good service that they do for you. They don't charge you anything extra. They just charge the same amount that your local government office charges for the death certificates, but you can order them at the time that you're making the funeral arrangements, and that's really easy. They'll help you figure out how many death certificates you need. They have a checklist over there too. They're very good about that. They obviously do this all day long. So use them as a resource and follow their advice for the number of death certificates that you might need.
Notify Social Security office.
Right. So the next few that we're going to talk about are things that have to do with really with fraud for the most part. Social Security, obviously we're talking most of the time that's more pertinent to somebody who maybe is receiving Social Security benefits, because if benefits are paid after your loved one has passed, those benefits will have to be paid back to Social Security. So you want to notify them as quickly as possible about that. You will need a certified copy of the death certificate, so it will take a little while until you get that. Those certified copies sometimes take a few weeks, so keep that in mind.
Also notify Medicare.
Medicare, same deal. You want to make sure you notify them, particularly if there are any premiums or any benefits. You want to make sure that you're notifying them. Again, you want to avoid having to pay anything back, and you also want to avoid fraud.
Canceling their health insurance.
Same deal.
Also, they may, if they do pay for it, if they have a private plan, they could be getting auto-deducted money, or could be coming out of some retirement thing. So you want to cancel that so that they're not continuing to, because they'll take that money out forever if they don't know.
Right, and that goes for everything. Things like gym memberships will be taken out forever, and all kinds of other subscriptions will be taken out forever. So you want to make sure that anything that you are aware of that they're signed up for that's auto-deducted, that you're canceling those right away. Sometimes they'll ask you for a death certificate. Sometimes they'll just accept a photocopy. Sometimes they ask for a certified one. Most of them will accept a photocopy. And particularly at first, obviously you don't have one because it takes a few weeks. They'll go ahead and they'll cancel the membership, and they'll tell you, well, just send one to us when you have it.
The next one is if they had a life insurance policy, notify them.
Absolutely, notify them. So you want to notify them for a couple of reasons. One, you want to stop the premiums because obviously they've already passed. And second, you want to see what it takes to file that claim for the benefits.
Yeah, I would file the claim before you cancel the policy.
Yes.
Yeah, don't just cancel the policy
Right.
and say, these 2 YouTubers told us to cancel the policy, now I can't get the money.
No,
You're not canceling. You're just calling them to say, hey, they passed, so now what do we do?
Right, so you're not actually canceling the policy. The way it actually works is you notify them that there's been a death event, and you're going to ask them, what comes next, how do we do this, and they'll talk you through it, and through the course of that, they'll also stop deducting premiums.
Canceling other insurance policies except for their house.
Right.
Don't cancel the house one. Find a way to keep it paid.
Right. So you want to make sure that you're canceling things like maybe disability insurance or, whatever else, dental insurance or vision insurance or whatever else that they have. So you're canceling those because obviously they no longer need them. But things that are still needed, such as the homeowner's insurance, that's still needed. If there's still a vehicle in play, that vehicle insurance does need to stay in force until you figure out what you're doing with that vehicle. So things like that. Anything,
so you can drive it.
So you can drive it, so that it's still insured against theft or vandalism and things like that. But until you kind of figure out how to dispose of the estate, you do want to make sure that you are protecting the assets and you are maintaining the insurance on those assets.
This is one thing that a lot of people don't realize, but if they happen to have a loan on their house, right? They still had a mortgage. You do want to contact their mortgage company to let them know they passed, because it's possible that when they started their payments, they paid for insurance that pays off the loan if they pass away for their heirs, so that the house would be free and clear of mortgage.
Right. But at the same time, make sure that those mortgage payments are being made.
Yeah.
This is super important. Just because they've passed, that doesn't mean that those mortgage payments go away. So unless there's some policy in place that pays a mortgage off upon their death, make sure that you're still making the mortgage payments. And even if there is a policy in place for that, that policy will not kick in until you provide that certified death certificate, which you don't have yet. So make sure that those mortgage payments are being kept current. Same thing with car payments. Keep those car payments current. Because again, you don't want to have the car taken away for non-payment. It is an asset, and it is part of your job to protect the assets of the estate.
We did have, a long time ago, back in the REO days, a property where the woman passed away. So she didn't make her payments, obviously, and it was back when they were foreclosing in the minimum timeline, which was like 117 days. They noticed a default, no trustee sale, foreclose. And there was equity in the house. And what happened was that we got it as a bank-owned home, and then like a month later, the heirs finally called the children and said, hey, our mom died. We've kind of blew off like coming out there and stuff, but why did like the bank selling the house? They didn't realize that the house was had a mortgage on it and everything. So that's why you want to keep making the payment.
Right. And then sometimes particularly elderly people will do a reverse mortgage, and that reverse mortgage can also be redeemed. So keep that in mind. So if that house is subject to a reverse mortgage, contact that mortgage company, figure out what needs to happen if you are interested in redeeming that mortgage. Because let's say, for example, that the house is worth $500,000. What was borrowed against it was maybe $300,000, and what was actually paid out was maybe only $100,000. So there's not that much that's owed on the house, and you could redeem that for whatever was paid on the house plus interest and whatever else, and then you still could walk away with maybe $300,000 in equity or more. So make sure that if the house has any kind of mortgage on it, that you understand what kind of mortgage, make the payments, make arrangements, if it's a reverse mortgage, to maybe redeem it if that's in your interest.
A really important one, probate attorney.
Very important.
Yeah, very important.
Very important. So even if your loved one had a trust, a probate attorney is still somebody that you need to chat with, because there are still things that you need help with. So please don't think that, we had a trust and we can just rock and roll on our own. There is more to it than that. This is not legal advice. This is life advice. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Contacting if you know who their financial advisor, stockbroker, somebody like that, contacting them.
Right. So contact anybody that would know about their finances, like Todd said, their financial advisor, their stockbroker, their banker, particularly, if they have a personal banker, that person might know things as well. They will, of course, want a certified copy of the death certificate and all that good stuff. But, just getting them kind of on the same page that this person has passed and that you'll need help. They'll give you some limited help without a death certificate, but for more significant help, they will need that certified death certificate. It's a good place to start, and you want to make sure that, like I've been saying, that you're protecting the estate, you're protecting the assets, because eventually somebody that this person cared about will be inheriting whatever is left.
The other thing too is making sure you continue to pay the important bills, but probably canceling the things that they don't need. So for example, you want to probably keep the power on so the house doesn't get really hot or really cold or whatever, right? And you want to keep the water on so the grass keeps getting watered. But maybe if they have they had a cable bill or a home phone line that you probably don't need those, you can probably call and cancel those.
Right. So you can call and cancel those, and especially if you call them up and you let them know that the person's passed. A lot of times I did that for Todd's mom, and they were very kind. They went ahead and they gave me a little bit of credit because I didn't call right away because, of course, I had other things on my mind.
Yeah.
So I was a little tardy with calling them, but they were very good. They gave me like a week's worth of credit, and they were very nice about it. Make sure that you're paying other bills too, like for example, like credit card bills and that sort of thing, because just because the person's passed away does not mean that responsibility disappears. The estate is still responsible. So you want to go ahead and contact them, let them know that the person's passed, and then if there are any late fees or interest charges and that sort of thing, ask them to waive them.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that most people would not waive them. I only had one person give me kind of a hard time, and it was kind of funny because he said, well, you're going to get a survey when I hang up, and please tell them that I did a great job. I said, well, you would have done a great job if you would have waived my fees. He said, okay, hang on, I'll waive them manually.
Yeah. So
it does work.
Okay. With the credit card, think of the credit reporting agencies and contact them, because there is a potential for somebody else to assume the identity, take out new credit, and start, charging things and creating all new accounts if the credit reporting agencies don't understand that they're deceased.
Right, and you want to make sure that that you do report to the credit reporting agencies, because, like I said, the estate still exists. So you don't want the estate to have to fight these fraudulent new credit lines. And
that's a lot of the reasons why there tends to be some fraud when somebody passes away, because they're not actively looking for stuff going on, and there's not a way to contact them. So it's easy for them to assume the new identity, create new email accounts, and do that. Which brings us to our next one, is actually terminating their email services, websites, and things like that. Right.
So definitely, if they have any online presence, their Facebook or Instagram or email or whatever, that they have any online presence, you do need to make sure that those accounts are notified that this person has passed, so somebody else does not, again, assume their identity and commit fraud. This is a final act of protection for your loved one, that you're trying to protect their estate, their reputation, so that someone doesn't take over.
Same thing with the driver's license. You want to cancel the driver's license.
Cancel the driver's license. Same kind of situation. Voter registration, same thing. I know we all have our opinions about voting, and we won't go there now. But make sure that you do let the registrar of voters know that this person has passed, so that someone else does not vote for your loved one.
Yep, they may not vote for the same person you're voting for.
That's right.
What about professional organizations, memberships like gyms, things like that?
Right, exactly. So professional organizations, gyms, any kind of subscriptions, you'd be surprised what people subscribe to. So a good way to kind of know where to start with these things is to take a look at those bank statements, those credit card bills, and that'll give you a big clue who you need to cancel. And sometimes it takes a little bit of digging, but we know that everybody out there has gotten much more savvy about finding out who these people are and canceling those services.
Next is contacting a tax preparer.
Yes. So this cannot be overstated enough. Please contact a tax preparer, because if your loved one had particularly any real estate or any other assets that are worth a bit of money, this tax preparer is going to advise you how to deal with those assets. So for example, in the case of real estate, an appraisal needs to be done right away, not 6 months down the road, but right away, because you need to establish the basis value for that property at the time that the person has passed.
And the probate attorney too, that's something you'll talk to him about,
right?
Because him or her, they'll explain why these are important.
Right. So if your loved one had a tax preparer, definitely contact that person. If they don't have a tax preparer, or you don't know who their tax preparer was, then certainly speak with the probate attorney about a tax preparer to go ahead and have this conversation with and get some good advice.
So that was those are like the important things.
They are.
All the other stuff, you'll eventually figure it out, or if it's important, you'll do it. But those are really important ones that you need to do, because those can have, even though your loved one is passed, you still could potentially, they probably worked their whole lives and saved so that, their heirs, children, or whoever else that was important in their lives, they could give them something. They could leave something to them. And it's usually something economic, right? It's either money or property or something like that. And that it's harder to do that when, their stuff is in chaos, because they're still paying bills on stuff, or, their house gets foreclosed, it has equity and some other person just buys it and they take all that equity or whatever.
Right. So last but not least, consider having a person that is sort of in charge of the whole thing, because if you assume that someone else is going to do the job, then perhaps no one will, and then that's how you end up with your loved one's property becoming someone else's property, like the property of the state or the bank, that sort of thing. And that would just be unfortunate, because your loved one spent their life accumulating all this, and it would be nice if somebody that they cared about benefited from their life's work.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't like, most of this I didn't do. Oana's been doing it all. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the child or whoever, or grandchild, whatever. Just, somebody that can help you do it is fine too. Just tell them, give them this list, show them the video and say, hey, can you watch this and do all these things, and,
Absolutely. So. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave comments in the comment box, and we'll be happy to answer them. We know this is a difficult time. We're going through it. Yeah. And we know this is different than the normal real estate video that we do, but this was a life experience that we've been going through for the last few weeks, and we wanted to share that with our YouTube family, and we wanted you to benefit from some of our experience, and hopefully this was of service to you. And
keep in mind that chances are, most people that are older do own real estate. They don't all rent. So if they do own real estate, then there's probably equity, and it's probably the property's being passed down or it's being sold, and that. So that real estate is obviously one of the first things people ask, because that's for most people. Most people don't have a ton of assets. But most people's assets are the home they lived in. Right. And then in retirement, they consume their assets. They spend and live on some fixed income or retirement. But they always have that equity in the house, usually, that they keep, because they have a place to live. Right. So remember to contact any retirement plans that your loved one may have had, 401k, defined benefit plans, their employer. That's really important too, because their employer may have had some sort of death benefit as well. So remember to contact anybody that was, in any way financially related to your loved one. That's really important.
And last but not least, let's talk about tenants real quick. I know that we're generally focused on homeowners, but let's talk about tenants. Because if somebody's renting, then there's a landlord involved. And if that rent isn't being paid, the landlord will go ahead and proceed with eviction. And then what happens to the belongings and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So make sure that you get in contact with the landlord, explain what's happened, be diligent about getting everything out of the landlord's property, in particular. Because obviously the landlord needs the property back so they can rent it out again, and then you may want some of those personal belongings. I know that certainly that couch has no value to you, and that dresser has no value to you, but you'd be surprised what is in that place that maybe does have value to you.
Pictures.
Pictures, maybe a child's handprint from kindergarten, or there are all kinds of things in there that maybe have sentimental value to you or to someone else in your family. So make sure that you go through it. Anything you don't know, put it in a box and deal with it later. Anything you do know, dispose of it as you see fit, whether it's to go ahead and find it a new home or to dispose of it through charity or trash, whatever is appropriate. But you do want to go through all these belongings as quickly as possible, because you want to make sure that they make their way to the right person. One word of caution. If you're going to have a garage sale, estate sale, anything like that. We had this experience.
Yep.
Even people that are well-meaning. In our case, it was a religious person. Just kind of be very careful. We had people go through and say, well, we want to know where the shoes are. And we're thinking, why would you want to know where this person's shoes are? This makes no sense. And come to find out that what they wanted to do was go through this person's shoes to look in the toes of the shoes for money. They went through all the dressers, they went through every little drawer, they went through even the little sewing kit looking for money.
Yeah, so older people who grew up maybe during the Depression, who would be people that would be in their 90s right now, didn't trust banks.
Right.
And a lot of times they didn't really want to use credit cards or debit cards. They didn't have an online presence. They used a lot of cash. And because it was harder to get out of the house, they tend to stash cash in the house. So we came to find out that people will go to your loved one's house and say, oh, I just want to look at the furniture, whatever. But then they'll actually start going through like their sock drawers and start opening up the socks and to see if there's cash. And then even we had a book of stamps that my mom had in a drawer. And I saw the book of stamps, and then we went back after the people left, when we were going back collecting things and putting them in boxes. The stamps were gone. They literally took the stamps because the stamps have value, and they didn't really want anything. They said, oh, we're going to come and pick up some furniture maybe because we were giving away furniture. But what they really wanted to do was just go through the house and hunt for cash. That was hopefully they could find some cash stashed. So just be careful letting people just come in and until you've really gone through the house and taken all the personal things and do that, because people can be that way.
Sorry if this was a bit disjointed and ranting, but we just wanted you guys to get some of the benefit of our experience and hopefully avoid some of the mistakes or negative experiences that we had. And hopefully this was of service to you. If it was helpful to you, or if you think it might be helpful to somebody, please like the video, share the video. If you have any questions, comments, anything helpful for our YouTube family, please leave them below. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.
Bye.